Everyone, this is my TED Talks summative assignment for ENG4U, and without further ado, here we go. So the TED Talks video that I'm presenting on today is called Leather and Meat Without Killing Animals, and its presenter is Andres Forgax. Mr. Forgax is a bioprinting entrepreneur, which sounds funky, but basically just means that he works in biotechnology, focusing on tissue engineering. He also co-founded the company Modern Meadow with his father, Gaber Forgax, which focuses on developing cultured leather and meat products which require no animal slaughter and much lower inputs of land, water, energy, and chemicals, which brings me back to the video and what is presented within it. As can be assumed by the title, this video presents a new innovative alternative to growing leathers and meats without needing the mass production of living animals. It suggests and demonstrates using biofabrication to create our burgers and leather accessories instead. Mr. Forgax starts off the video by presenting to us the idea of 3D printed tissues and drops statistics on us about how things are going with the current way animals are mass-produced and slaughtered. The fact of the matter is that there's currently a world herd of 60 billion animals. And within a couple of decades, it's expected to increase to 100 billion animals. As Mr. Forgax says, this is not a sustainable option. They're living beings, and already our livestock is one of the largest users of land, fresh water, and one of the biggest producers of greenhouse gases which drive climate changes. This was a chart that Mr. Forgax presented in his video, and you can see how jarring these statistics are. He also mentions the unsanitary situation this mass production creates, and we know that these animals are being pumped with a bunch of chemicals as well. This, as he mentions, puts the environment, public health, and food security at risk. This allows him to go more into detail about the biotechnology he is working on, and the fact is that this biotechnology is a completely sustainable alternative to producing our meat and leather products. This actually coincides with the theme that I've chosen, which is that this is an ethical alternative that is actually much more economically and ecologically beneficial than the non-ethical alternative. In regards to his actual presentation techniques, I thought he did very well. He enunciates, he doesn't say or us. I've already got to work on that myself. He intrigues the audience, and he keeps the attention with visual stimuli. He's also aware that this can be a delicate and confusing subject, and therefore doesn't focus too much on trying to push higher morals on anyone. This, I believe, is also possibly why he focuses more on the leather than anything else. He even says, it is clear that, initially at least, more people would be willing to wear novel materials than would be willing to eat novel foods, no matter how delicious. In this sense, leather is a gateway material, a beginning for the mainstream biofabrication industry. He provides relevant facts and statistics and explains hard-to-grasp scientific concepts with visual aids and simple enough to understand language. To explain what his team is doing, Mr. Forgax says, what if, instead of starting with a complex and sentient animal, we started with what the tissues are made of, the basic unit of life, the cell. He goes on to explain that they begin by taking a few cells from an animal, just a quick, painless biopsy, then they're able to send that animal on its way to live happily ever after. They are then able to coax these cells into multiplying, basically indefinitely, and to produce collagen, just as normal tissues would. From there, they just repeat the process, and once they've got multiple layers of skin, they can put them together, and bam, there's your leather. This may seem like an extreme scientific experiment, but we've actually been 3D printing tissues like this for years in medicine. We've already created human livers that can be transplanted into patients. It's been on Oprah. It's some fully developed technology. Because of how theoretically perfect and simple these samples are, there are no bug bites or nicks or anything like that. The tanning process for this leather is also a lot simpler and shorter, and therefore requires less chemicals than normal tanning processes. Also, because of how they're able to direct how the cell grows, Mr. Forgax also mentioned that they're able to choose a lot of different aspects of how the leather is going to be. As he says it, we can tune this leather for other desirable qualities like softness, breathability, durability, flexibility, elasticity, and even things like pattern. For his presentation, he brought some examples, and as you can see here, that they've created varying levels of thickness for the leather. We can also control the shape the leather grows in, meaning we would waste less tissue if it's grown straight into the shape of a purse. There are some big controversies on this topic, for sure. The main one that comes to mind is that there are a lot of people who feel that in fact this is not an ethical option, it's very unethical to be playing God. And while, as of yet, we can't do absolutely anything we want with these tissues and stuff, the idea that we could eventually even choose the color that the leather grows in is not that far off. Many people feel that this would be putting too much power and control in our hands and that it's not natural and thereby bad. There are also a lot of people who worry that it would mean too many people would be out of a job. And indeed, if we switched to this alternative like that overnight, what would even happen to those 60 billion animals that we do currently already have? There are still others who are worried about the parts we don't know in these situations. Things like genetically modified foods have been available and consumed by people for years now, but there may be aspects to it that are not necessarily healthy. This is a topic that is still widely debated between everyone from us to scientists. Unfortunately, because this is still such a new frontier, we don't know all the answers yet, and these are valid concerns. Although, cultivating cell cultures is not a new idea. We do it when we grow alcohols and yogurts and such, and in fact, the lab-grown facilities that Mr. Forgax works in, where we'd be producing meat from cells, doesn't look unlike a brewery, which is a clean and pleasant change from the current slaughterhouses we have today. You wouldn't be able to tour a slaughterhouse, but if this becomes the norm, you could go on a field trip. It would be very educational, clean, open, healthy. And overall, however, even though there is some controversy with this topic, I think that the benefits far outweigh the cons, and I believe that there is still the even more overwhelming ethical issue of the mass slaughter and abuse of 60 billion animals. Because the Earth is no longer capable of sustaining us at the rate that we consume, and I hope to convey the importance of treating our Earth and its creatures well, and to show how easy it can be to do so. Hopefully, by focusing more on the economic and ecological benefits that he had presented in his video, I'll be able to change some thoughts in regards to eating less farm-grown meat and helping conserve our Earth. And lastly, overall, Mr. Forgax's presentation was very effective, and he presented his ideas and works in a very succinct and clear manner, so I think that was a success, and I would recommend watching that video for anybody, just for educational purposes. Okay, thanks for watching, guys, and I hope you have a good night.